All righty. Welcome to the Truth in Life broadcast, where we do our best every week to bring you a biblical perspective of the things we see going on around us and the headlines around the world in the same tradition as established for this program by Rabbi Moshe. I am producer Deb, and that's all you're going to get this evening. I am indeed producer Deb. Um, So we'll have to say that we're going to have a lot of prayer requests this evening. Normally, of course, in studio with me is our friend Richard and our friend Jim. But the two are they're both actually tonight in the hospital. So the for Richard, they think he might have the flu. They don't know what's going on. He ended up in the ER today. Jim has been undergoing a series of tests, and so then when they get his medication straightened back out, then he will be heading back um, and pretty soon. So I'll let him update you on everything when everything is known when he gets back. But please say prayers for all of us. And it looks like he's trying to call me. So hang on here and let me see if we're going to have to do this over the phone. And I'm going to accept it. Hello? Hello, hello.
Hey, you are streaming and I can hear you live.
Oh, okay. So I said that I would let you get the updates whenever you want to give the updates about what's going on with you.
Sure. I am at St. Louis University Hospital. I'm on the 6th floor in what used to be the old hospital. And they have built onto it since then. I am in the old part. Why? I finally got a straight answer out of a doctor who came to see me today. And they said, Jim, you're a cancer patient. We're going to keep you away from all the people who have COVID and all the flu-like symptoms as far away as possible. So they've got me in a hidden location in a corner of a hospital that it's like the Bat Cave. And so
I'm familiar with that hospital. That's where Chuck was when he was diagnosed with pancreatic cancer in the old hospital. They didn't have a new hospital yet at that time.
Yep. And so I had a bronchoscopy done yesterday. I've got 3 nodules in the lower left lobe of my lower lobe of my left lung. And they did a bronchoscopy yesterday to do a biopsy. They did get at least 2 of the 3 nodules that I know of. They may have gotten the third one too. The results on that are either going to come tomorrow or on Monday. I am scheduled for release Saturday, which means usually whenever they tell me that, usually it's a day ahead. So I could be let loose tomorrow afternoon.
Oh, wow.
But basically what they did was I went in Monday. I am on blood thinners. I've got a complex situation. I'm on blood thinners from a heart surgery that I had last February, where I had a heart valve replacement put in for my aortic valve. And because of that, I am on blood thinners. They had to take me off of the warfarin blood thinner that I'm on now, put me on a drug that's called heparin. Heparin is easier to control. The problem is that heparin, it's easy to get to it's easy to put on somebody, but whenever you take it off,
that's
it's
hard.
easy for it to quit.
Right.
So, but they use that for my surgery because warfarin's a little wonky. It goes high, it goes low, and they don't know exactly 1 minute what my INR is, what the ratio is, or my coagulants are, my blood. So
yeah.
so the heparin is more predictable during surgery. So they did that for my bronchi, and my colonoscopy today, they found no polyps in my colon, so that's good news. And right now, what they're doing is getting me off of the heparin and putting me back on the warfarin, and that's why I'm going to be in the hospital an extra 2 days. So they're going to get my coagulants right, and then they're going to send me home.
Yep.
So
and they're keeping you away from that. The hospitals in St. Louis, from what I'm understanding from the media, is they're completely full.
They are
with COVID, rhinovirus, and flu.
But there are a few beds available where I am at.
Hmm.
So I don't know exactly what they're using this for. I mean, if it's just for patients like me,
I believe so, probably.
yeah, it's probably just for cancer patients who need to get away from it all.
And they probably have it staffed with people that are not actually running through the rest of the hospital either.
That's correct.
Yeah. So,
These and you know, um, in my case, one of my nurses said that I am so low maintenance that sometimes she wonders if there's a patient in my room. So because I unplug everything and I go to the restroom if I need to, I really don't need a nurse's help for all that.
well,
So
you're not exactly sick. Exactly.
no, no, not right now. I'm not.
No.
They're just I am and I'm not. Um, so I'll find out probably if not tomorrow, it'll be Monday.
Yeah.
And we'll know if basically all this is about to confirm if I've got cancer or not in my lung.
Yeah.
That is that here's another complicated part. It's not lung cancer from smoking or anything like that. I had kidney cancer a year ago. I had to have my left kidney removed, and they're saying that it's metastasized and the kidney cancer may have moved into my lung.
Hmm.
So because of that, the treatment could be different than if you're doing as you say, it's regular lung cancer, from smoking or something along those
Right.
lines.
Right.
So, it's convoluted, story of my life, and but I should be sometime this weekend, if not tomorrow, and I'm hoping to be at Jewel tomorrow night, but that's up in the air.
Yeah.
So,
We'll see. I hope you are too. But if not, we'll do our best to try to give the broadcast on. I have to take all this equipment down tonight, and I may need help to do that as well and get it hooked back up in the other room. But we'll see. So, but we recognize the doctors are doing good work. They're taking good care of you. We don't accept or we don't receive the diagnosis where that's not going to be the um, end result. Let's put it that way. We just
I
know.
would call it cancer, but I'm going to say it's cancer in the lung, not I don't have cancer, but it's cancer in the lung, and it's not going to be there long.
Right. Right.
I have an appointment with Dr. Robert Cantrell in Nashville on Monday and Tuesday.
I think his name's Stephen,
And
but anyway, Stephen Cantrell.
Stephen Cantrell, right? Stephen Cantrell. And so he's more of a taking a more of a holistic approach to this. And I'm hoping between Dr. Cantrell and the folks over at SLU that in about 6 months or so, I'll be cancer free if that is what it is.
Yep. So,
So,
all right.
So that's the end. That's the end of that story. Thank goodness.
That's the story, right?
And it's like, good night, folks. Go home safely. That's the end of the show. No,
Yeah.
it's so. But I'll keep listening. I'll let you give an update on Richard. And
Yeah, I don't. I actually, I said that right before. I talked about you. I really don't know much about what's going on with Richard. I just know he's in the hospital. So just prayers for him. But I absolutely don't know what's going on. I may call him later this evening and see if he's able to, if they've done something with him, if they've even gotten him a room, because I believe that Nancy was saying that he was still in the ER this evening. So they're all having the same problem, trying to find places to put people.
Yep.
And
so it's it's what we call a cluster. I'm
yeah,
not sure if going to a hospital at the same time, and some people are going to get turned away, unfortunately.
unfortunately.
So
Yep.
So anyway, well, I may try to find out during the show, and if I do, I'll text you, and
All right.
I'll get you an update. I'm just sitting here, not doing anything, so I may as well try to help as best I can.
All righty.
You have a go.
I will go, and if we have to call you back, I will. But for now, hopefully, we can get to some of these headlines, and we might even be talking about the Antichrist this evening. So who knows?
Awesome.
We'll see what we get to here.
I'll look forward to that. Okay.
Yes. So everybody pray for Jim, and we'll talk to you in a little while. Bye. So that's your update for Jim right now. And I see that another friend of mine's trying to call me. Yeah, it's just been a busy time. Actually, we've been talking to quite a few friends and family. I had to go to didn't have to. I went to my cousin's memorial service near St. Louis yesterday, and I'm very thankful. The weather was beautiful, and she and her husband are going to be inurned together at Jefferson Barracks, which is an amazing place, very similar to the burial grounds there of Arlington Cemetery in Washington D.C. They have something similar there. It's just amazing to see all of those people who've served in our military, and the headstones there at Jefferson Barracks, right along the bluffs along the Mississippi River. An amazing place, very very heart stirring when you see a scene like that. You just I knew that was there, but when you look at it and you look out across the vista there, it's quite breathtaking. That's all I can say is it's quite amazing. So, but tonight, it's warm. It was like 68 degrees when I came here. It's like, am I in Florida? No, not really. I'm here in Southern Illinois in January, and quite a bit of wind out there. So there's a chance for storms. It's windy. Let's hope that the broadcast stays going. That's what we pray. Lots of things to talk about. The big thing, I guess, besides the capture of Maduro, my goodness, we were coming to you last week, and then right the next day they went down into Venezuela and they got Maduro. But the other thing that's been going on, that's making the powers that be very nervous is that there are many massive protests in Iran. So the Iranians are protesting, and I believe that I had heard and seen that the Khomeini family has been moved to Russia. Now, the guy himself, supposedly, whoever the Ayatollah is ruling right now, Ayatollah Khomeini, he's supposedly still in Iran. But Trump said he'll kill him. And so I have that headline in the stack tonight too. So if he doesn't stop the murdering of the protesters, we'll see what happens there. So a lot is changing. Trump is really playing an interesting game of chess here. And everybody's like, "Oh, he's captured a president of a country and all this stuff." And they're protesting and set Maduro free and all of these things. And um, well, first of all, he was not recognized as the legitimate president of Venezuela. He stole it. He stole the election. He literally did not. The election was had in Venezuela, and he did not win, but he was not going to abide by any of that, and he took over. So he Donald Trump was not the one that put out uh, the the bounty on his head. Believe it or not, it was the Biden administration and the Obama administration that was dealing with him, and so Trump just did something about it. But what that has done is that has really rocked things, has really made China and Russia mad. And that's a good thing because they have worked their way into our hemisphere, and Donald Trump is exercising the Monroe Doctrine and really shaking things up. And when he has cut that off, he's actually cut a line in to Iran as well. And by doing that, he gets back control of things and gets a little bit more of balance. So this is going to be a very risky time. Um, we have been in a season of war since 2024. It looks like it's going to continue on through 2026, and at least, and this is the time of the season of what we are in. And so we've got lots to pray about. Lots to pray about, but there's more to it than oil. That's what I think I want to say, because they tried to bring this down to just something about, oh, they just want to please the oil company. It's all going to be about oil, and it's like it's about oil, but it's not totally all about oil. And I do see that some of the folks on the pardon me, I'm going. Oh, I see someone's trying to get a hold of me again. Yet, so we'll have to try later. But anyway, it seems that. It's kind of it's kind of simplistic to just say that this is about oil. And so we will talk more about that in the time coming. But I do have headlines here that I'm going to get through some of these headlines. Um, and I guess, more things to pray about, right? This is why we bring these stories to you. This is coming out of Breitbart. The Texas AG targets supporting branches of radical Islamic terror group Hamas operating within the United States. Oh boy. So, Texas Attorney General Ken Paxton joined a legal push against Hamas linked groups in the United States, citing the need to decimate and dismantle radical Islamic terror organizations and their domestic supporting branches. Guess what? Hamas is here. My heavens. On Tuesday, the Office of the Texas Attorney General confirmed that Ken Paxton joined a coalition of states in filing an amicus brief supporting victims of the Hamas October 7th, 2023 terrorist attack and civilians displaced or endangered by the group's ongoing terrorism. The brief was filed in support of claims brought under the Federal Anti Terrorism Act. The filing backs plaintiffs who sued American Muslims for Palestine and the National Students for Justice in Palestine, citing on October 8th, 2023 declaration in which the group stated that they were a part of a unity intifada under Hamas's unified command issued one day after the attacks. Now, guess what? Hamas actually tried to shoot off a rocket today in Israel. It kind of backfired. It just fell back onto them, but they're still there and they're still trying to operate. Hamas has not laid down its arms and they refuse to. So we'll talk a little bit more about that in an upcoming article, but they're still operating. So it says here that Paxton's office argues the U.S. law allows victims of terrorism to seek accountability beyond foreign terrorist organizations, extending to domestic groups accused of supporting terrorist activity. Announcing the action, Paxton said radical Islamic terror groups like Hamas must be decimated and dismantled, and that includes their domestic supporting branches. Terrorism relies on complex networks and intermediaries, and the law must be enforced against those who knowingly provide material support, he added. My office will continue to defend Americans who have been brutally affected by terrorism and ensure accountability under the law. The Attorney General's office framed the brief as part of a broader effort to confront Islamic extremist movements as a domestic threat to Americans, pointing to Paxton's prior defense of Texas' designation of the Muslim Brotherhood and the Council on American Islamic Relations, that's also known as CAI, as foreign terrorist and transnational organizations. The brief, led by Virginia and Iowa, was filed as the underlying litigation continues. Last month, Paxton noted that radical Islamic terror groups are anti American as he called for an end to the infiltration of these dangerous individuals into Texas. And we've been telling you about that. They want to build a totally Sharia compliant city there in Texas. I believe it was called Epic. And then they have already in the I think they said within the last 2 years, maybe even less time, they have built over 43 mosques around the Dallas Fort Worth area. So they are on the move and on the march. And of course, we've been hearing all about the daycare centers, right? Up there with Tim Waltz and all of the corruption with the Somalis. And it turns out that a lot of that money is being sent back to terrorist groups as well. So we've got all, and it's not just there, it's in all sorts of our programs that we're every these the bleeding heart liberals wanting to be so kind to everyone, but there's no accountability and there's no checks and balances on it. So our money, our tax dollars, have been going out of this country to terrorist groups. I think I heard uh, his name is slipping my mind right this second, but he was on with Laura Ingram tonight. He's the Fed chair, I believe. No, he's not the federal chair. They want him to Bassett. They want him to replace the Fed chair, but he also is in charge of the IRS. And he said they've been tracking where this money has been going, and they're finding out that they're putting a thing out there to say that, well, if you're getting money, uh, type of money that's supposed to go help people who have been fleeing from countries, if it's supposed to help the family, that you can't take that money and send it out of the country. It's like, well, if you have enough money that you're getting to try to help your family, if you're refugees, but you're getting so much that you can send it back to your own home country, then maybe you're getting too much money. And that made sense to me. And so, yeah, you don't need to be sending money, our tax dollars that are meant to help people here, over to terrorist organizations and all sorts of people that are not here. So, yep, that's what they're trying to track down now. Also, out of Breitbart, Iranian protesters ask Trump for protection. Don't let them kill us. It's fascinating. They were having Iranian protesters in Germany today, and there's a video out there of a woman who she is screaming back at these people who are Iranian protesters. They're actually, asking for help to get the terrorist regime out of their country, and they want to take back Iran. And this woman stands there and starts screaming back at them, "Free Palestine." It's like, I mean, yeah, the insanity out there it's it knows no end, it knows no bounds. But anyway, uh, what do the people in Iran care about free Palestine? They're trying to get their government back. But that's what we've got to deal with sometimes out there. Iranian protesters are reportedly asking President Donald Trump to make good on his pledge to protect them from the regime in Tehran, even as human rights groups report escalations of force by Iranian security forces and a growing body count. Again, things to pray about. Let us pray for these people in Iran, protection, covering of the angels on them as they try to get these thugs the control of their government out of government and get their country back. Iran was an amazing country before all of this Ayatollah mess got involved. The human rights activists news agency said that there have been at least 29 deaths and 1,200 arrests so far in the protests, which were ignited by deep public outrage at the deteriorating economy. Yes, their money is worthless in Iran now. I think we talked a little bit about that last week. The misplaced priorities of their terrorism supporting regime and the rank incompetence of Iranian public officials. Among other disasters, Tehran has been teetering on the brink of evacuation for months due to a severe water shortage. Yeah, you go against Israel, you try to bomb Israel, you will not be blessed. You will be cursed. They're undergoing a drought. Um, and so it says here last Friday, as the protests were swelling into a real threat to the power of theocracy, President Donald Trump said U.S. forces are locked and loaded and ready to go if Iran violently kills peaceful protesters, which is their custom. Mm-hmm. The U.S. State Department warned Iran not to play games with Trump on Sunday after the U.S. forces captured Venezuelan narco terrorist dictator Nicolas Maduro. You see, it wasn't just about Maduro necessarily and just about drugs and just about oil. It wasn't about that. It has sent shockwaves all across the world. Viral videos spreading through Iran and international social media on Tuesday show protesters asking for protection from the United States with a plea rendered in English on and sprayed on city walls. Trump, a symbol of peace, don't let them kill us. And so, according to the National Council of Resistance of Iran, the protesters are continuing unabated, and two cities in western Iran called Abdana and Malakshaki have been effectively taken over by the protest movement. The NCRI said that there have been multiple instances of protesters successfully driving regime forces into retreat from city to city across Iran. Sparks are turning into open uprising, said NCRI President Miriam Rajavi. The voice of Iran's streets, its bazaars, and its universities is a single cry: freedom. Freedom, she said. This is a fire that cannot be extinguished. Yeah, it's amazing. Their universities are doing that. Our universities are screaming free Palestine. Anyway, Amnesty International on Tuesday confirmed reports that regime security forces attacked a hospital in Ilam where injured protesters were receiving treatment, denouncing the attack as unlawful use of force and evidence of how far the Iranian authorities are willing to go to crush dissent. Fox News Digital reported another such incident in Tehran's Sina hospital where security forces were seen terrorizing patients and their families. Radio Free Europe's Radio Farda on Tuesday interviewed an eyewitness to a brutal regime attack on demonstrators in Malik Shahi when protesters lobbed stones at a building used by the terrorist Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps. On January 3rd, IRGC troops took positions on the roof and opened fire into the crowd. Those who didn't see them on the roof thought it was an airstrike, but when some of the people who were shot fell to the ground, people realized they were shooting directly at them. Oh, such a nice bunch of guys, huh? A number of innocent people, mostly young people, were killed. The number of wounded was high, and that's of course the independent human rights monitors, and 5 protesters were killed. Radio Farda reported that the IRGC was involved in the hospital attack denounced by Amnesty International. Despite attacks by the security forces, including the use of tear gas, the crowd and the medical staff did not allow them to take the bodies and arrest the wounded. He said this evidently enraged the regime's shock troops, who eventually forced their way into the hospital and beat everyone they saw, whether they were members of the public or medical staff. These are really, really demonic things going on. So, like I said, to put on the prayer list, the people who are standing up to this evil regime, it needs to be the demons need to be bound and cast down. So the regime has been desperately attempting to create a distinction between legitimate protesters whose grievances the regime is ready to bear and rioters who are acting like agents of the United States and Israel to in a bid to destabilize Iran. See, well, they turn the phrase and what they use. Ejai's statement was a reminder the regime might be treating the protesters with a relatively gentle hand, but it will show no such compassion to the rioters. Yeah. Israeli President Benjamin Netanyahu also expressed support for the protesters on Sunday, saying it was quite possible that we are at a moment when the Iranian people are taking their fate into their own hands. Iran's state run Fars news agency claims some of the protesters have been vandalizing banks, looting stores, and shooting at the police trying to disperse them. Yes, but you can't believe the Iranian side. So, and another Breitbart article says that, and it's an exclusive, Tehran University protesters say Islamic regime is cracking. This is the final battle. So interesting the times we live in. Interesting the way God is rearranging the nations. Yeah, this is an interesting time we're living in. Time to look around and see prophecy in action, right? A young Iranian law student protesting in the streets of Tehran and speaking from inside the capital says life under the Islamic Republic has become unbearable, fueling nationwide protests she calls the final battle. As she expressed hope President Trump will keep his promise and the West will arm the strike the regime's forces before an unprecedented threat of exporting extremism and a nuclear armed Islamic Republic destabilizes the world. See, in all of this, they've got a drought, their economy is collapsed, but they're still working on those centrifuges. They're still working on their nuclear program. They don't care about the people at all. It's the same thing that Hamas has done. They're operating under the same exact demonic thing. They care about getting their bombs and stroking their own egos. And the people at the top, oh, they don't have any problem with water and food, and they don't have any trouble with money. It's just they could care less about the people in the nation. As protests expand across Iran, Breitbart News obtained a rare first-person account from a Tehran law student speaking from inside the capital despite the regime's crackdown. The woman, identified here as Noor, to protect her safety, described a country gripped by economic collapse, environmental disaster, and political repression, with a generation that has lost fear and patience with the ruling clerks. Now, I'm hearing or understanding that the internet has gone down today. It's going to make it more difficult. I'm hoping that Elon Musk can keep the Starlink going over them and keep something open, so these folks who need a way to get the news out can still do it, and that they can also get information. But of course, I'm sure the regime is trying to take down all of the inner workings so that these people can't talk to each other. The woman identified, like I said, it says here, 30 is part of a growing wave of young Iranians who have poured into the streets in recent days, openly demanding the Islamic Republic's downfall. Alongside friends she trusts, she is taking the risk of arrest and violence in hopes of forcing a fundamental change in Iran's political future. Noor, a law student at a university in Tehran, said everyday existence has deteriorated to the point where basic necessities are no longer guaranteed. She described a reality where families juggle multiple jobs yet still struggle to afford food and rent, where air pollution chokes major cities, and where water shortages and electricity blackouts are routine. We have no social or political freedom, and the economic pressure is backbreaking, she said, explaining that for many Iranians, life is no longer about living, it's about surviving. With the Islamic regime in power, we see no hope for the future, she added. Many of my friends and classmates are disillusioned. We need change. According to Noor, the regime blames sanctions, climate change, and foreign enemies like the U.S. and Israel for Iran's failures. But young Iranians reject that narrative. Well, they're smart, aren't they? All of our suffering comes from the regime itself, she said. They destroyed our environment, our economy, and our lives. Noor said students and activists live under constant threat from Iran's intelligence services, with arrests, beatings, and executions used to instill fear. Every day there is a risk of being taken, she added, adding that this fear pales in comparison to the cries of mothers who have lost children in the streets or to the executions carried out in the name of God. Her law studies, she explained, offer little comfort. If this regime survives, my degree itself becomes a danger, she said, noting that lawyers who defend political prisoners is in sham predetermined Islamic courts are often jailed or killed. She said, I was born under the shadows of repression, hate, and a dictatorship that has no respect for law, human rights, or human dignity. The economic divide, Noor said, has become impossible to ignore. Bakers now cut loaves into smaller portions because they cannot afford full bread loaves. Some Iranians scavenge trash bins for food, she said, while regime connected families live in luxury apartments and drive sports cars. Yep. Some people are more equal than others, huh? The children of the regime live in unimaginable luxury and wealth. There is no morality in this world, only hypocrisy. How ironic that their fathers order the militia to beat and rape girls if they fail to comply with Islamic morality dress codes in universities, and yet their daughters and sons do what they like when they like. Unlike earlier generations, Noor said today's youth who thirst for organized, cautious, and determined. Trusted circles meet under coded pretenses, avoiding informants in a country where poverty makes betrayal easy. Living in Iran and opposing this regime is a danger to life, she said, comparing the underground organizing to a spy movie without glamour, only prison, sexual assault, or death. Her turning point, Noor noted, came during the mass protests of 2022. When I saw thousands in the streets, I realized I was not alone, she said. We are all on a sinking ship, and if we don't do something now, we'll all drown. I want to live as a free woman, not an enslaved girl, Islamic extremists who hate me. If I die for my country, so be it. No to Gaza, no to Lebanon, my life for Iran. Through the internet, we saw Iran in 1978 and rediscovered our glorious past, our humane king, Cyrus the Great, our culture, and our contributions, our inventions, contributions to medicine, technology, astronomy, literature, and on all Iranians, there is a burning phoenix that the regime tried to extinguish, but it failed miserably. We want an Iran of culture, humanity, and freedom. This is not our Iran. And she also says that many inside Iran are now support tougher sanctions and even military action to weaken the regime's security forces. We're already bankrupt. Let the regime become penniless so it cannot pay militias to kill us. She voiced hope that President Donald Trump and Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu will stand by their commitments. We need support, arms, or decisive strikes against the militia, she said. One strong blow to any main headquarters, and this house of cards could collapse overnight. Yeah, this girl is really taking her life into her hands, just of what she's saying. After Libya, Iraq, and Afghanistan, the West is understandably cautious, but Iran is different, she noted. This is a grassroots push to reclaim our country and build a tolerant, peaceful, prosperous nation. Yeah, I remember Mr. Obama doing something to set back this whole thing. Don't you? We are a united civilization that has survived for thousands of years, she said. Help us now, and we will do the rest. While political views vary, Noor said most young Iranians agree on one thing: the Islamic Republic must end, and the country's next chapter should be decided by Iranians in a national referendum. This time, we will not be the silent majority, she said. Our voices will be heard from every city and village. Noor warned that if the regime survives, the consequences will not stop at Iran's borders. A nuclear Islamic Republic is a direct threat to the free world, she said. If we fail, your children will face this regime on your own soil, she continued. If this regime survives, the West will face an unprecedented threat of exported extremism, and the threat of a nuclear armed Islamic Republic will destabilize the world. The free world's future interest to invest in the Iranian youth now before it's too late. Despite the risks, Noor said the movement will continue regardless of the cost. We will either free Iran or die trying, she said. This is the final battle. For her, the fight is deeply personal. Iran's future is filled with life, joy, and light, and my life is to this land. Without a free Iran, there is no life for me at all. As protests intensify and the regime shows signs of strain, voices like Noor's offer Americans a rare, unfiltered look inside a country at a potentially historical breaking point, especially as monitors reported widespread internet disruptions in Tehran and other areas today. I was mentioning that a little bit earlier. A move widely seen as aimed at blunting organization and outside scrutiny. Rights groups and journalists tracking the unrest say the crackdown has turned increasingly lethal, with the reported death toll now at 45, alongside mass arrests, underscoring what Noor argues is not just Iran's future at stake, but the security of the United States and its allies. On Thursday, President Trump reiterated that the United States is watching closely and that Iran would get hit very hard if the regime escalates killings against the protesters. So I thought that was important to hear her voice. Um, and of course, this comes from the All Israel News staff. U.S. Senator Lindsey Graham warned that President Donald Trump would kill the Iranian regime leader Ali Khamenei if his forces continued to kill protesters as the massive demonstrations against the regime entered their 12th day. And of course, it reports here that the protests and violent clashes were reported in 111 cities across the country, so 31 provinces, where at least 34 protesters and 4 security personnel were killed, and some 2,200 protesters were arrested. And so it says here, to the people of Iran, we stand with you tonight. Graham said, we stand for you taking back your country from the Ayatollah, a religious Nazi who kills you and terrorizes the world. And to the Ayatollah, you need, if you keep killing your people who are demanding a better life, Donald J. Trump is going to kill you. He continued, help is on the way. And it says Graham's warning came as the regime has continually escalated its violent crackdown against the protesters, while the regime officials threatened Israel and the United States, whom they accuse of instigating a revolt. Well, no water, and the fact that the money has just, has no value. I'd say that has a little bit more to do with it than the United States or whatever the United States or Israel could do. So it goes on there, but and it says here that also today, yeah, Donald Trump is a busy, busy man. Oh, he can many things at once. This is coming also from the Jewish News Syndicate. U.S. President Donald Trump announced plans to withdraw Washington from 66 United Nations and international organizations, agencies, commissions, and conventions. Well, 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 well. Trump signed and published a presidential memorandum on Wednesday, which he said followed a review of which organizations, conventions, and treaties are contrary to the interests of the United States. Well, can you believe that? I mean, can you believe what administrations have done to this country? When a businessman sits there and reads it and understands what it's doing against this country, it's only because God's hand has kept the United States afloat that we're even still here. Because of all of this. This is with the withdrawals will come with full U.S. funding cuts for all of the entities. The Trump administration has found these institutions to be redundant in their scope, mismanaged, unnecessary, wasteful, poorly run, captured by the interests of actors advancing their own agendas contrary to our own or a threat to our nation's sovereignty, freedoms, and general prosperity. And that was stated by Marco Rubio, the U.S. Secretary of State. Washington will exit the United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change, serves as the central international agreement on climate crisis solutions, along with the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change and other assorted environmental organizations. America joined the convention via Senate ratification. It was not immediately clear if Trump had the authority alone to order a unilateral withdrawal. Trump announced last year that the United States would exit the Paris climate deal as well. The memo on Wednesday also calls for withdrawals from the United Nations Population Fund, which focuses on maternal and child health, and the United Nations offices of Special Representative of the Secretary General for Children in an Armed Conflict and Sexual Violence in Conflict. The Children in Armed Conflict Office has accused Israel for 2 years in a row of being a mass violator of children's rights, despite wildly inconsistent internal UN data and standards. Antonio Gutierrez, the United Nations Secretary General, warned Israel it was in danger of appearing on this year's sexual violence in conflict blacklist as well. The Israeli mission to the United Nations declined to comment. President Trump is clear it is no longer acceptable to be sending these institutions the blood and sweat and treasure of the American people with little to nothing to show for it, Rubio stated. The days of billions of dollars in taxpayer money flowing to foreign interests at the expense of our people are over. Since the start of his second term in January last year, Trump has withdrawn the United States from other United Nations bodies, including the World Health Organization, the United Nations Human Rights Council, and he has called for dismantling UNRWA, the UN Agency for Palestinians. Washington, Jerusalem, and others have said has extensive ties to Palestinian terror organizations. See, they found out how to get the money and just funnel it back into their terrorist activities, just like they're doing with the daycare centers in this country. The Secretary General regrets the announcement by the White House regarding the United States' decision to withdraw from a number of United Nations entities. Stefan Dujarric, spokesperson for Guterres, said on Thursday, as we have consistently underscored, assessing contributions to the United Nations regular budget and peacekeeping budget as approved by the General Assembly are a legal obligation under the United Nations Charter for all member states, including the United States. But I think that we have to pay more than anybody else. Dujarric said that all UN agencies would continue to implement their mandates. According to Trump's memo, the United States intends to exit other entities such as the Carbon Free Energy Compact, the United Nations University, the International Tropical Timber Organization, the Pan American Institute for Geography and History, and the Internet Lead and Zinc Study Group. The United State Department source said that no decision has been made about personnel affected by the withdrawals and would likely be handled on a case by case basis. You wonder why we're trillions in debt? I think this explains some of it. Hillel Neuer, executive director of UN Watch, told JNS that the administration's decision to disengage from dysfunctional UN agencies highlights a broader credibility crisis. United Nations Women, for example, failed to take meaningful action against its deputy chief, Sarah Douglas, who endorsed more than 150 anti Israel social media posts that violated the UN Code of Conduct. Neuer said that absence of accountability, compounded by electing regimes like Saudi Arabia to lead its Women's Rights Commission last year, reinforces why reform or recalibration of the U.S. engagement is necessary. Eugene Kon- Kontorovich, I don't know how she says Kontorovich, a professor at George Mason University Scalia Law School and executive director of its Middle Eastern and International Law Center, stated that the Trump administration's actions is beginning the opaque web of globalist institutions, including numerous organizations whose exit I have called for over the years. Some of these minor niche organizations that do no harm but cannot be justified from the point of taxpayer expense, wrote Kantorovich, who is also a senior research at the Heritage Foundation. Others, like the Vienna Commission, seek to manufacture, lay down astroturfed international soft law that overwhelmingly aligns with progressive values. Ah, the progressives, huh? The UN women neglected mass rape by Hamas, but remembered Amal Clooney's birthday. Yeah, their priorities are a bit out of order. Con- Kantorovich, the biggest thing was the United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change because it was joined via a Senate wide treaty, making reentry by a subsequent president almost impossible. The UNFCCC violated federal law by admitting the PA as a state and will now reap the consequences, he stated. There has never been such a broad stakeout of America's position in international organizations, and it is much overdue. Needless to say, a Democratic president will undo much of this because these organizations embody their globalist worldview. Yeah, that's how they're funding the one world movement, aren't they? But for decades, Republican presidents played along. The left has normalized their preferences as good global citizenship. Trump's action puts an end to all of that. Well, that's why we elected him, right? Go in there, and that, I mean that's why Doge is still so needed. We don't want to get rid of. We'd like Elon to come back. We still need that to go. More of this needs to be revealed. Now, here's a little bit of a concerning headline, and this is coming from the Times of Israel. Now, I understand the Times of Israel is more of a left leaning organization. So we'll see if this is how this how this story plays out here. But it says here the U.S. plans to start second phase of Gaza deal before Hamas is disarmed, last hostage's body returned. Now that's supposed to be the deal. The body of the last hostage has to be returned before phase two will move on. And of course, I think that Hamas knows this, so it's not in their interest to have anything move along. So they're going to hold on to this as long as possible. U.S. President Donald Trump's administration told Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu last week that it is committed to both bringing back the final deceased hostage from Gaza and disarming Hamas, but it is not prepared to the condition the commencement of phase two of its peace plan on either. Okay. A U.S. official and two sources familiar with the matter told the Times of Wednesday. Jerusalem has pushed back on proceeding with phase two, which envisions the establishment of mechanisms involved in the rebuilding and management of post war Gaza. Before Hamas returns the remains of Israeli Police Master Sergeant Ron Gvili and hands over its weapons, the U.S. has been in talks with the Middle East mediators, Egypt, Qatar, and Turkey. Ugh. Yeah, really, which have assured Washington that Hamas will agree to a gradual disarmament plan that would begin with the terror group giving up its heavy weaponry and the launch of a big buyback program or a buyback program for lighter weapons, according to the U.S. official and two Arab diplomats who said the goal is to begin implementing the program in the coming weeks. I don't think they should be giving them any money. The deal is give up your weapons and we won't kill you. That should be the deal. It was not clear whether this framework will be sufficient for Israel. Hamas officials have publicly asserted that the organization will only agree to negotiate a process that results in the establishment of a Palestinian state. And we know that's not going to happen. And they have said they're not going to give up their weapons. Still, the Trump administration is aiming to next week unveil the Board of Peace, along with an intermediate executive committee and a Palestinian theocratic committee. The U.S. official said two Arab diplomats said, confirming a report in the Axio news site. Washington had first planned to reveal the makeup of those bodies in mid, but has been pushing off the announcement amid struggles to rally international support as an October ceasefire deal between Israel and Hamas has barely held. Trump told Netanyahu during their meeting last week at the president's Mar-a-Lago resort in Florida that he wants to quickly advance to the second phase of the ceasefire deal. The U.S. official said, adding that the premier raised concerns but said Israel would cooperate with the effort and informed interlocutors that it is secured commitments from Egypt, Qatar, the United Arab Emirates, the United Kingdom, Italy, Germany to have their leaders join Trump on the board of peace. Four officials familiar with the matter revealed to the Times of Israel last month. Washington has since worked to get additional countries on board, albeit with little success. One of the Arab diplomats said on Wednesday, adding that the U.S. is considering spots on the panel with the heads of the World Bank, International Monetary Fund, and the World Economic Forum. Interesting. It says here the U.S. hoping to announce the makeup of the board piece next week so that some initial fundraising can be conducted before the first meeting of the panel is held the following week, the World Economic Forum in Davos, Switzerland, the U.S. official and two Arab diplomats said. The U.S. official clarified that the timeline is not set in stone as other foreign policy issues such as Venezuela or Ukraine may take precedence. Moreover, the U.S. official said that the Trump administration wants the Board of Peace to be used to assist in the resolution of other conflicts around the globe as well. And Washington still plans to have an interim executive committee be more closely involved in oversight than the Board of Peace. Trump's top advisors, Jared Kushner and Steve Hoff, expected to participate along with former UK Prime Minister Tony Blair, while the United Nations former Mideast envoy Nikolai Mladenov will be responsible for liaising the Palestinian Technocratic Committee in Gaza. The Axios reported that Mladenov will visit Israel this week for meetings with Netanyahu and other senior officials. Egypt has been leading efforts to establish the Palestinian Technocratic Committee while consulting with the U.S., Israel, and the various Palestinian factions. I'm reading all. I believe that this is the setup for what's going to eventually come around to being the 10 kingdoms. The 10 kingdoms with the 10 kings that will rise up. I think that we're seeing the very, very infant stage of this setup occurring. You see that they're working hard to get more of the Muslim countries involved. So this is part of the two legs, and we'll see how this works out. But it says here that a list of 12 names of politically unaffiliated individuals were submitted to the Shin Bet Security Service, which went on to approve 8 of them. The Arab diplomat said, while the West Bank based PA has pushed for one of its ministers to join or even head the committee, Israel vetoed this idea outright. One member of the Technocratic Committee is slated to be a former PA official, according to two sources familiar with the matter, as if there really would maybe be a such thing as a former Palestinian Authority official. We'll see. It is unclear whether next week's planned announcement by the U.S. will address the makeup of the ISF, which is tasked with phasing out Israeli forces in Gaza. The U.S. struggled to get countries to contribute troops. Washington outed Indonesia and Azerbaijan as two countries it expects to join the multilateral force, but the latter's president ruled out that idea this week. The United States had also planned to hold a follow-up conference in Washington to further clarify the ISF's mandate. Two countries skittish about joining, though it has not yet been finalized as the administration has prioritized other foreign policy issues. The U.S. official downplayed the apparent ISF recruitment woes, insisting that countries would agree to contribute troops once they realize that they will not be expected to send their soldiers into battle against Hamas. Hamas, as the mandate will be more modest than Washington and Jerusalem initially envisioned. Interesting, right? Again, this is part of that. We see that the 10 toes, the 10 feet, or the 2 feet and the 10 toes, iron and clay, nothing's stable. Iron and clay do not mix. And we're seeing a lot of that in a lot of this and the way it's being talked about. Meanwhile, efforts we're moving ahead to establish a pilot residence compound straddling the Israeli side of the Yellow Line ceasefire demarcation on the ruins of the southern Gaza city of Rafah. The Arab diplomat said the IDF has been clearing rubble from the area and defusing unexploded ordnances for the quick construction of a neighborhood capable of housing more than 20,000 Palestinians. Yeah, we kind of hoped they'd get them out of there, but it looks like they're trying to keep them around. The U.S. hopes to replicate the project throughout the Strip, though the diplomat acknowledged that much will depend on the success of the technocrat government and efforts to marginalize Hamas. Yeah, I mean, the problem isn't just Hamas. The problem is the Gazans, period. And I don't really call them Palestinians because there is no such thing as Palestine. So, anyway, it says the general benchmark for what Israel allows into the strip has been deemed life saving, which has meant largely limiting the diet of Gazans to dry food products while barring educational materials such as desks and notebooks as aid organizations struggle to get children back into schools. Yeah, but the question is, what are they going to teach them there? They've been teaching them to be, haters of Jews and to be jihadists. So, yeah, I don't think there's a rush for that yet myself. On more interesting news here going on here in Israel, the Negev is running wild, according to this art, and this is from All Israel News. Um, Joel Rosenberg organization says here murder spree and rampant gun smuggling plague Israel's south, fueling tensions with the state. It says here, as tensions between authorities and Israel's Arab community have reached a boiling point in recent weeks, on Wednesday, Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu toured the western Negev to discuss the problem of gun running, while President Isaac Herzog hosted a meeting focused on the horrific murder spree that has claimed 11 lives since the start of the year. Both problems have plagued the Arab community for years, but simultaneously escalated in recent weeks, causing additional tensions with the police and security forces. Arab leaders have often blamed authorities for first policing their areas, then conducting openly violent enforcement operations once crime gets hand. The approaches to the problems by the prime minister and the president on Wednesday differed notably. Where Herzog emphasized dialogue, Netanyahu focused on enforcement of law, order, and security in his statements, reportedly disappointing local leaders who had hoped he would rein in controversial police tactics in the Bedouin city of Tarabin, north of Beersheba, where an officer shot dead an Israeli citizen on Saturday. Herzog convened several Jewish and Arab state heads of local authorities from the Negev region for an emergency meeting in his office to discuss the escalation of violence and crime in Arab society with a particular focus on the situation in the Negev. Another thing we'll have to watch here is Mr. Herzog, I think, has his eyes set on becoming prime minister. So we'll see, because he's not really in lockstep with Netanyahu. And is this part of his new political campaign? We'll have to see. This came shortly after another triple homicide on Wednesday morning, raising the death toll in the Arab sector to 11 since the start of the year. It is unacceptable that since the beginning of January, 11 Arab citizens have been murdered in the state of Israel, lamented Herzog. The 3 Arab men were murdered together in the northern Arab Israeli town of Shafaram, where ongoing gang wars have killed dozens in recent months, according to Walla. The blood between the Hawalad and the Sawad crime families has claimed the lives of at least 30 people, many of whom were involved with crime and targeted only because of family affiliation. So, meanwhile, we've got this big war going on And yet we've got rival gangs in southern Israel. So, mere hours before a 20-year-old medical student was murdered in the southern village of Arara in the Negev, stop and think about that number 11 citizens. This is an inconceivable figure. It is a national disaster and a national challenge. Well, it's kind of regular for Chicago, but not for Israel. Arab citizens of Israel are entitled to live in complete security just like their Jewish brothers and sisters. Israeli law must apply in all local authorities, and it is our duty to not only enact it, but also to enforce it. Let's jump on down here, but it says here the government recently declared the growing phenomenon of smuggling weapons to Gaza, Judea, and Samaria, as well as to criminal gangs in Israel via the Egyptian and Jordanian borders as a national emergency, and security agencies have begun treating the phenomenon as a national security matter rather than a criminal offense. Well, they better, because that's how they're going to be smuggling the weapons, of course, back into all of the region. The Negev area has been in an uproar recently after Ben Gvir ordered the police to launch a massive raid to arrest smugglers in the Bedouin town of Tarbin al Sana around a week ago. A local resident, Mohammed Hussein Tarabin, was allegedly shot dead by an officer on Saturday night when police came to arrest him, causing outrage and demonstrations. So, very interesting. Very similar things happening there. Just wanted to bring that little update to you about just regular violence and violent crime and gang crime going on there in Israel, much like here in some situations. Palestinian terrorists fired a rocket toward Israel from the Gaza City area, which is under Hamas control on Thursday. Now, they're already talking about going on to stage 2 of this Gaza plan, and they've still got the Palestinian terrorists, the Gazan terrorists, shooting rockets. The launch fell within the territory of the Gaza Strip near a hospital, the Israeli Defense Forces said. In a rapid closing of the circle, the IDF struck the launch point in a targeted manner. The IDF said that it views with great severity any attempt by terrorist organizations in the Gaza Strip to carry out terror plots against IDF forces and the civilians of the state of Israel. See, they have not agreed to surrender, right? They have not agreed to give up their arms. It was Gaza's second ceasefire violation in the past 24 hours. Israeli forces killed a key Hamas terrorist on Wednesday after gunmen from the group fired at an area where troops are operating in the northern Gaza Strip, according to a joint IDF and Shin Bet announcement. The terrorist activity, or the terrorist advanced terror attacks against IDF troops in the northern Gaza Strip, the statement said, adding that further details would follow. And so it says here Palestinian terrorists have attempted to harm troops along the Yellow Line. Meanwhile, Axios reporter Barak Ravid reported on Wednesday that President Donald Trump is expected, of course, to an establishment of the Gaza Board of Peace next week in the Phase 2 situation. I just don't think that it's going that well, right? And we'll keep an eye on all of that as we run through this. Now, I have Amir Tsarfati's newsletter, but Amir is still on vacation. He's taken a bit of a sabbatical time here. Now, he was really running and burning the candle at all ends, both ends, in the middle, all around. So he has needed to step back for a little while. Um, so he's got this gentleman named Steve Yohn, who's the senior writer and editor of Behold Israel. And it says here Amir is nearing the end of his online hiatus, which he undertook to prepare himself physically and spiritually for his remarkably full 2026 schedule. So he'll be back soon, I guess. But in the meantime, they're still putting the headlines out here. Um, and it says here that he said, at Behold Israel, if there's one thing that we have learned over the years, if Amir is planning a break from reporting the news, then the world is going to explode. Yeah, immediately when he's not around, everything goes crazy. So if Nicolas Maduro is looking for a culprit to blame for his current predicament, I think he needs to start with the name Sarfati, right? And so and it says, but this week's news wasn't just taking place in Venezuela. globally, so much was happening that Amir felt compelled to at least get back on Telegram and keep us abreast of all the events. By the way, if you don't follow him on Telegram, right? Um, and it says here on his Telegram post, it says here it's 2 p.m. here in the Philippines. Day 2 of a water fast. My body is weak, but my spirit is awake, and the Lord spoke to me with unmistakable clarity. 2026 is a year of being strong and of good courage. Yes. Have I not commanded you? Be strong and of good courage. Do not be afraid, nor be dismayed, for the Lord your God is with you wherever you go. Joshua 1:9, right? This is a year of major shift, a year of return, a year when many will come back to trusting him and trusting his word. Draw closer to our long awaited departure. The battle intensifies, but we are not called to fight with vulgarity or cheap rhetoric. We fight with his word. His word is truth, John 17:17. And only the truth sets people free, John 8:32. So that's from Amir himself. And I agree. It does seem like it's going to be a time of a lot of upheaval. Like I said, I don't think that we're going to be getting out of this time of war um, as quickly as we maybe would hope. I think there's still going to be a lot of struggle and a lot of upheaval and a lot of rearranging of the players on the world stage. So, and of course, I mean, President Trump we're coming up close on his 1 anniversary of being in office. He's got a little over 3 years to go. So, a lot of things. I mean, think about all that's happened just in this year, all that has been accomplished, and what's the next 3 years going to hold? And of course, we've got midterms. So the campaigning is going to be going. So we're going to have all of that here, probably hearing more about that than we really want to, but to be very vigilant in our prayer, very deliberate by the requests that we make, and very much led. I keep saying, you've got to be led by the Holy Spirit. You've got to have the Holy Spirit open up to you the guidance, so you'll know where to pray, what to pray about, how to pray, and then have our eyes open to what needs to happen. The people around us, who needs to be put in office, who needs to be taken out of office. I mean, we need to do a lot of straightening up and changing around. We have a big enemy that's trying to come in and really take over and mess things up continually. He thought he had it the last 4 years, and doing everything he could to stop Donald Trump from getting back in, and because he had plans and designs, and it's been thwarted a bit. We've been given a little bit of time, and I believe that for most of the reason was for Donald Trump to be put in the second time in office is because he's acting more on the world stage. He's acting in a greater place on the world stage. God is lining up. God is lining up all of the pieces on the chessboard. Let's just put it that way. So a lot of things coming up in this year, and we must draw closer, and we must not be taken down on rabbit trails. We must keep our focus on what the Lord is wanting us to have our focus on. Right. Deep in the night of January 2nd, Chinook helicopters crossed the skies of Caracas, Venezuela. America's Operation Absolute Resolve had begun, and by the time it concluded, President Nicolas Maduro and his wife, Celia Flores, would be in custody on their way to New York. It was a perfectly planned and carried out surprise military action that took place in the capital city of a hostile nation. During the action, close to 60 Venezuelan military and security personnel were killed, while 7 U.S. soldiers were injured. According to Attorney General Pam Bondi, Maduro and his wife will now face charges in the Southern District of New York, including conspiracy to engage in drug terror activities, conspiracy to import cocaine, possession of and destructive devices, and conspiracy to possess machine guns and destructive devices against the United States. Not surprisingly, all the usual suspects lost their minds over this decisive action by the president. Russia, Turkey, Colombia, Qatar, Iran, Panama, Cuba, and other United Nations, UN states, and anti-Western countries condemned the extraction. Hamas and Hezbollah threw in their 2 cents against, as did all the angry liberals in the United States and beyond who hate everything that Trump does. It's amazing, you know, what Trump derangement syndrome does to these people. Anti imperialist protests sprang up immediately around America. Did you notice all of the nicely printed signs? Yeah, just like within hours. Yeah, don't be fooled, folks. This is all pre planned and coordinated. They've been waiting something since the George Floyd riots and all of that. They've been waiting for their next assignment, and they've got everything plotted out. So it's not organic, it's all planned and staged. On the flip side, Venezuelans in Venezuela and many other nations are dancing in the streets, praising the United States for freeing the citizenry from the crushing thumb of Maduro. Another place we can see celebration is in the United States stock market, and which hit an all-time high on Monday. This action by the United States has truly changed the global picture. On Tuesday, President Trump issued an ultimatum to Venezuela to abandon its alliances with China, Russia, Iran, and Cuba. Yeah, the players we've been talking about, the BRICS nations, right? And place its oil industry under an exclusive partnership with Washington. U.S. Ambassador to the United Nations Mike Waltz emphasized the split with America's enemies, saying to the United Nations, you cannot continue to hold the world's largest energy reserves under the control of U.S. adversaries. The U.S. Department of State added on X, this is our hemisphere, and President Trump will not allow our security to be threatened. This is all part of the Trump doctrine of the Western Hemisphere and the Middle East. For an excellent, concise analysis of this very important doctrine, of course, they encourage you to read two of Amir's Telegram posts. And if you want to get his newsletter, I believe that you can. If you can go on Behold Israel, you can get these updates yourself. And so I get it through Telegram. I used to get it sent to my email, but it stopped coming. I have to go sign up again. Speaking of Amir's input on the Venezuelan situation as the attack was taking place, he posted a question on Telegram asking how long it would take before Israel would be blamed for the attack. For the acting president of Venezuela, the answer was 2 days. Delcy Rodriguez, who had been vice president when Maduro was taken, said on Sunday that the U.S. operation was actually a Zionist attack. Oh, my. Orchestrated by Israel. Candace Owens, along with other anti Semitic loons, also put Israel in a direct influencing role for the extraction of Maduro. Despite his role as the head of a nonprofit organization, a lot of Amir's predictions seem to have a touch of the prophet to them. It's like Donald Trump was a little upset that they don't give him total credit for this one. The protests in Iran that began 11 days ago are growing. In more than 200 locations around the country, people have taken to the streets. Chains have been burned. Pictures of the house have been desecrated. And pictures the military is fighting back with live fire, killing at least 36 citizens and arresting more than 2,000. According to the human rights group, with the Islamic regime caring more about their arming their proxies than providing food, water, and energy to the population. On Tuesday, the Iranian rial reached a new low. It's called, I guess, a rial, reached a new low of 1.4 million to $1 on the open market with no signs of potential turnaround. Yeah, it's their currency has just collapsed completely. The country's leaders are trying to distract the people by attempting to focus on a common enemy. For 2 days in a row, Iran has threatened a preemptive strike against Israel, but for many in Iran, they find a greater affinity with those in Jerusalem than with those in the government buildings in Tehran. We just, of course, earlier read that account in Breitbart with the young girl that wants to be a lawyer. Her name's they call her Noor for her protection. She's a law student, and we she was explaining how the youth are rising up. Um, and Meanwhile, dozens of U.S. Air Force refueling tankers and heavy military transport aircraft have departed to the Middle East, with numerous sources saying it is in preparation for strikes against Iran. Other countries see the threat, and Canada, Russia, and Australia have each asked their citizens to leave Iran immediately. The Ayatollahs certainly understand their predicament and have deployed air surveillance radar systems in Tehran and several other cities in case either the U.S. or Israel comes calling. There are also rumors that Ayatollah Khamenei has a contingency plan to flee to Moscow if either the protests grow or another major attack comes. These rumors are bolstered by a claim by British Member of Parliament Tegarant that there were reports of Russian cargo aircraft landing in Tehran and large amounts of gold leaving Iran. And I had also heard that the Khamenei family is in Russia now. Throughout the last week, Israel has hit Hezbollah targets in Lebanon. The Lebanese government is scrambling to show that they are attempting to disarm the terrorist group, even releasing footage of the military neutralizing a Hezbollah underground weapons facility, but their overall effort has not been effective. And sources say that Israel is not interested in waiting for Lebanon to transition to the second phase of the agreed to weapons consolidation plan that would focus on the areas of the north and of the Litani River. Um, Talking about peace in Gaza, Hamas says it's ready to move on to stage 2 of Trump's plan, but there are still two major hurdles which must be overcome. The terrorist group must disarm, something they're unwilling to do. Second, Israel demands the remains of the final hostage, uh, this Gavili. So these two issues are yet to be resolved. The U.S. takes two Russian flagged oil tankers, and we've been hearing about that. They took a cat and mouse game taking place for 2 weeks between the U.S. and two Russian shadow tankers that broke through the American blockade of Venezuela. Eventually, the motor tanker Bella 1 and the motor tanker Sophia were located and boarded by U.S. troops, one in the North Atlantic Ocean and in the international waters in the Caribbean. You see, Russia is here on our side of the world. And they don't have any business being over here. This is part of what, this is why Trump is talking about Greenland. And that's the next topic here. China and Russia are here invading our territory. And that's not kosher. Mm-mm. It is the intention of the Trump administration to purchase Greenland, a statement made by Secretary of State Marco Rubio to certain U.S. lawmakers. The purpose of the acquisition is security, particularly with rising threats coming from Russia and China. European leaders warned against a military takeover of the country, saying that it could amount to an end of NATO. While the White House didn't rule out the military option, they did assert that it would not be their preferred option. Rubio will be meeting next week with key international players in the discussion. I mean, we have now in the NATO nations, a lot of them, basically an Islamic takeover. Think about the UK, France. Now, the one that controls Greenland is Denmark. They're falling to this Islamic control as well. A rising Muslim uh, inner part of these countries. And so imagine if we have an Islamic takeover of most of the NATO nations. It's not out of the realm to think it can happen within the next year or two. And so if Denmark if is controlling Greenland, allowing this to come up through, it's no protection for Greenland, and it allows this group to come into our part of the world, and Donald Trump is absolutely right, because it is a military for us to protect our nation. So it's more than even just whatever natural resources that Greenland has. It's basically the landmass and a place that we need to be stationed to keep our part of the hemisphere under control, because Russia and China are players that are moving in and trying to take over these areas. Of course, the Tim Walz has dropped from the Minnesota government because Governor has, amidst a rampant scandal involving the Somalis. We know all of this money that's been billions of federal funds stolen in so-called daycare centers, and probably a lot of it filtered back in the Democrat Party as well. So and then we have another breaking Minnesota news. They say after this newsletter was in the can, Minnesota once again exploded the cycle. Renee Nicole Good, a 37-year-old activist, tried to use her to block ICE vehicles in Minneapolis, and the situation escalated. And she drove directly at an ICE agent, hitting him and the agent's weapon in self-defense. They don't talk about that much in the media. She actually hit him with her vehicle. So that's a little bit of the rundown there of what's been going on, and it just is something that we've got to keep our eyes on things. The criticisms that gets is people who are very short-sighted. He's playing a much bigger chess game than we know anything about. He has information that he's getting that we have no knowledge of, and so he's very much trying to. I mean, I heard him say, it's like he doesn't need any more money. This is not about money. This to him, it's about protection of the United States of America. And so when he's doing all of these things, it's like I said with Maduro, it wasn't just about oil. It wasn't just even about the drug smuggling. It's about the connections back to Iran and to Russia and to China. It's breaking their money stronghold that they were gaining by having this basically unbridled pipeline of money focused, running into to focus on what they want to do, and they want to take over. Um, China plays along. China is the ultimate player here because they want to take over the world, and they want to take it over without a shot. They tolerate. But they think they can manipulate Russia. They tolerate them and manipulate them. But they are wanting to basically get controlled with their Belt and Road Initiative, the whole world. They've got their plan. Of course, Islam. Uh, the radical, we say radical Islam, basically the Muslim Brotherhood movement, they have their desire to want to take over the world. They partner up and they use the systems in the countries to steal the money, just like we're seeing with the daycare centers and all of these public works types of situations. Whatever they can set up to funnel this taxpayer block of money out of this country back to their own to fuel whatever terrorist situation or whatever they want to do to try to take over and control. That's where they're wanting to do. They're wanting to put their foot down and take control of all of the countries of the world. They want the entire world under Muslim control, and they claim they're doing it for Allah. And it's very much all of these players are battling to be the supremacy, and the Judeo-Christian world is under attack. We must fight in the spirit, but we also must fight uh, the everyday and be aware, like it being listening to that Holy Spirit. What is the next thing that we need to be focusing our attention on and not letting Satan get by with? And Satan's working on overtime. If he can't get get you one way, he's going to try to get you another way. And so we've had attacks, of course, physical attacks on our bodies here in the congregation to bring it down. Everything to try to keep this broadcast from coming to you. We're little, we get out to a few, but yeah, it's one of those things that we're going to stand in here. I mean, the Lord said, stay the course, and that's what we're doing. We're staying the course. We will do our best to keep things coming your way. I have this is again this is the Bible I read through last year, the Perry Stone Study Bible, and I was even talking to Brother Larry today, talking about the Antichrist. Saying the term Antichrist. I've got a couple readings out of this of teachings that, and I don't know if I am repeating any of them. I don't know if I got a chance to pass them along to you when I was reading this last year, but I don't think I did. And I think, of course, we were just running out of time in 2025, and we were having a challenge with the holidays and getting broadcasts out. So I didn't get a chance to read everything. But I was talking with Larry. There's been a lot of course, through the years, through this, through the decades, through however long, people have been postulating about this coming Antichrist. I guess ever since it has been talked about or written about, right? Who is this? And I said, some have postulated that it would be a Muslim, and some have said it's going to be Jewish, and then others are saying, well, I'm particularly lately, Mark Bill's saying no, he believes he's going to be a Christian, and so everybody has different ideas about it. I'm tending to lean a little bit more at what Mark Biltz is about, and I had heard a teaching, and I can't remember who did it several years back about we read the words Antichrist and we kind of get an idea of, well, you think Antichrist, the Antichrist spirit, people who are Antichrist, atheists, they're Antichrist, right? Um, and that's true. I mean, somebody who doesn't believe in God is anti anything in this book, right? God the Father, God the Son, God the Holy Spirit, anything that's written. But I heard a teacher say that you might want to really think about that and instead of emphasizing antichrist, actually could be more better translated false messiah. And that shifts you just a little bit uh, about this person. uh, people kind of in the Christian world, they're thinking about somebody. When you get you conjugate what is an antichrist. I mean, we think about evil and violence, and we think about Vladimir Putin. He's operating in an antichrist spirit, or Hamas. But let's think about this false messiah. This person is not going to come out looking like Vladimir Putin. In fact, I would say that this antichrist person is going to come out like someone looking very, very confident, very well speaking. Probably somebody that will be very attractive. Somebody who will portray themselves like Jesus, may very much, because it's going to be a deception. I dare say you're not really going to get a lot of people right now. If you Vladimir Putin, who wants to follow Vladimir Putin? Now, this we have to think a little bit differently about this. I think as to because how is this deception going to happen? I want to read here about in this section that Perry signs of the coming Antichrist. The signs of the times, right? And he says specific signs will precede the unveiling of the coming man of sin, the Antichrist. The first is called the falling away, which comes first and will be followed by the revealing of this man of sin. The Greek word for revealing here means to take off or take the cover off what has been hidden or veiled. All right. So the English phrase falling away is translated from the Greek word apost- apatasia, apostasia, which is the common Greek word used in connection, like we say apostate, right? With a revolt or rebellion, especially from a biblical standpoint, revolting against truth as it relates to scripture. The Greek apostasia comes from two Greek words, apo, to move away, and stat, which means to stand. Thus, it refers to moving away or going away from something. Determining to whom what the person or persons are going away from is based upon the context of what is being spoken. In this case, the context of this second chapter, which is the return of Messiah, Christ, most scholars believe the primary meaning of apostasia, is a defection or revolt from the truth. Thus, most scholars commonly interpret falling away mean that a specific turning away or falling away from God and his word will take place prior to Christ's or Messiah's return. This will certainly occur since Paul wrote to Timothy warning in the latter times some shall depart from the faith from 1 Timothy 4:1. I failed to say that this is coming as a commentary in the book of Thessalonians, Second Thessalonians. In the last days, people will certainly backslide, and believers to endure unto the end because false prophets and deceptions will become rampant, according to Matthew 24. The noted Greek scholar Kenneth Woost, however, has written about a second possible interpretation of the falling away, identifying it not as a defection from the truth, but a departing of the church to heaven. He based this theory on several points. The first is the possible secondary meaning of the word apostasia in the context of Paul's discourse, which covers the subject of Christ's return. When Jerome translated the Latin Vulgate, he rendered the Greek word apostasia as disessia, meaning departure. We should note that Bibles translated before 1611's King James Version translated this phrase, the falling away, the departing. While this is not the normal rendering among most scholars, Wust's insight is worth noting. He points that the common meaning of apostasia does not reflect the actual translation of the Greek word itself. The Greek noun apostasia comes from the root verb fastimi, which is found 15 times in the New Testament. 11 times this verb is translated as depart, departed, or departing. And in one reference, it refers to departing from faith in 1 Timothy 4:1. In 8 of the 11 references, it refers to a person's departure from one place to another. And he lists all the places here that's used. Other places where the verb aphistema is also found is in Luke 8:13, fall away, Acts 5:37, drew away, and Acts 5:38, refrain. The primary meaning of this verb refers to a person departing from a place or from another person. Thayer says the word means a defection of a freed man from his patron, or a divorce, a repudiation. According to the Lindell and Scott Classic Lexicon, the first meaning of apostasia is a defection or revolt. And the second meaning pertains to a departure or disappearance. Interesting to think about, right? And so it says here, this is an important point as it relates to the early Bible translations. The majority of the Bible translates before the 1611 King James Version interpreted the Greek phase ho, the apostasia, using the English phrase the departing and not the falling away. These included Tyndale, Coverdale, and Geneva Bibles, and Kramer, the Beza translation, all of which use the phrase the departing comes first. And those were all done in the 1500s. So Tyndale translated the verse this way: let no man deceive you by any means, for that day shall not come except there's come a departing first, and that man of sin be disclosed. That's something to think about, right? The Kenneth Woost in the New Testament and expanded translation translates the passage in this manner: do not allow anyone to lead you astray in any way, because that day will not come except the aforementioned departure of the church to heaven come first, and the man of lawlessness disclosed in his true identity, the man of perdition. Right? Thus, the first and primary meaning of the word apostasia is certainly a departing from truth. However, a secondary meaning can be a divorce, a dismissal, or a departing. In scripture, context determines meaning. The phrase would read the departing, meaning a specific departure already known to the reader, since the is a definite article in Greek pointing to a specific departure. What departure was already known to the readers of this epistle? In his letter, Paul had informed the church of a departure of the saints to heaven at Christ's return. And Paul reminded them that when he was with them, he told them these things. See 2 Thessalonians 2:5. Paul wrote of the coming of Messiah numerous times in his first letter to the Thessalonians. In Paul's first letter to the Thessalonians, the departing was the catching away of all believers at the return of Messiah, at which time believers would be caught up and removed from their earthly location to a heavenly one to be with the Lord. And that, of course, is 1 Thessalonians 4:16 and 17. There are only two schools of thought on the meaning of the falling away, that this departing of the church's departure to heaven at Messiah's return, or that the departing is a major revolt and departure from biblical truth and a revolt against God and his scriptures. Paul says the mystery of iniquity, 2 Thessalonians 2:7, was already working in his day, yet something was withholding and the man of sin from being revealed on the world scene. Scholars have called the force holding back the man of sin the restrainer. And then, of course, he goes on to teach about the restrainer here. But, uh, you know, it's an interesting thought to think about the fact that maybe before this antichrist, this false Messiah comes, the church, you know, the part of the church, the believing part of the church, will be removed. But I'm going to jump over here into 1 John and the talk about Antichrist, the false Messiah. And that's kind of just what I felt led to go with this evening about this as we get down to the end of the time we have together here, kind of running out quickly. John was the first and only biblical writer to coin the term Antichrist. Several years after his writing 3 epistles, he would personally experience a vision in which he would see this person he identified in the symbolism of a wild beast, devastating the planet in the midst of the final tribulation. Few Christians living today have not heard of the Antichrist. Christians who have read prophecy books, watched prophetic DVDs, or viewed apocalyptic oriented television specials understand 4 basic facts revealed in Scripture about the coming Antichrist. They are: the Antichrist is a man who will form a final empire at the end of the age. The Antichrist will make a treaty with Israel for 7 years. The Antichrist will eventually set up his kingdom in Jerusalem, and the Antichrist will be involved in the final battle called Armageddon. The 2 biblical prophets, Daniel and the Apostle John, both give numerous details in their writings and prophetic visions concerning the Antichrist's rise to power, his realm of influence, and his violent reactions to those who were his mission. Much of the church's historical understanding of this man comes from 2 prophetic books of the Bible, Daniel and Revelation. After studying the subject since the beginning of my ministry, and this is Perry Stone, at the age of 18, I have discovered there are many facts about this topic that are very clear in prophetic scriptures. I've also concluded that some previous church teachings were based more on human traditions or private interpretations handed down from generation to generation, which are often built on assumptions instead of scripture. Well, that happens on a lot of things, right? For example, have you ever attended a prophetic conference, read a prophetic book, or come across research that taught the following? The Antichrist will be a Jew from the tribe of Dan. The Antichrist will rebuild a temple for the Jews on the Temple Mount in Jerusalem. The Antichrist will be a man of peace and will oversee the common market. These 3 theories are based on individual interpretations or theological ideas handed down for generations, with certain early church fathers' interpretations, and not necessarily upon specific scriptures themselves. In fact, as I will explain, there is significant information about the Antichrist that has not been taught or understood. After tens of thousands of hours of researching the subject, I believe the Antichrist will be a Gentile, and he says from an Islamic background, not a Jew from Israel. I think, I also lean possibly that he's a Gentile and possibly a Christian. But Antichrist, I mean, not a Christian. Okay, let me say it this way: not a Christian in the sense of a true born again Christian, right? But somebody who takes it and uses it for to his advantage. The Antichrist will not rebuild the Jewish temple. Elijah the prophet will initiate the process. The Antichrist will control the oil-rich Gulf states and much of Europe. The Antichrist will bring peace only to his followers and death to those who resist him. I realize these 4 statements may disagree with some traditional interpretations of prophetic teaching. However, when we move from assumptions to direct biblical interpretation and insight, the issue becomes clearer. Now he writes here, and the Antichrist, a Gentile, not a Jew. First, let's examine the idea of the Antichrist as a Gentile leader and not a Jew. During the second and third centuries, some early church fathers became anti Semitic in their theological interpretations. Several early fathers, such as Irenaeus, which is the heresies, and Hippolytus de Christo, taught that the Antichrist would be a Jew rising from the tribe of Dan based upon their interpretation of Jeremiah 8:15 and 16. The snorting of his horses was heard from Dan. The whole land trembled. And it's that verse. I'm going to have to try to cut through here. Also, Genesis 49:17. Dan will be a serpent by the way, an adder in the path that bites the horse's heel so that his rider shall fall back. These two passages mention the Jewish tribe of Dan and horses. The assumption about the horse links the tribe of Dan with one of the foremen of the apocalypse. And the third observation is in the register of the tribes of Israel listed in Revelation 7. Scholars note that the tribe of Dan is missing from the tribal list in the Apocalypse. And since Dan is missing from the 12,000 Jews of the 12 tribes that are marked with a prophetic seal, since he's missing, that many assume the Antichrist must arrive from Dan. Why is Dan missing from the Revelation 7 list? The early land grant given to Dan is in the northern Golan Heights, where there are only mountains and a few tiny communities. No major city is in that region today. Later, Dan's grant was moved toward the coastal areas where Tel Aviv exists today. Today in modern Israel, many of the Jewish people living in the contemporary cities of Israel identified as Dan's ancient territory are either agnostic, atheist, or very non religious secular Jews. In the other areas of Israel, there are many religious Jews, Reformed, Orthodox, and in Jerusalem, ultra Orthodox Jews. It may be that Dan is missing because the Jewish men living in the area of Dan are unbelievers and therefore not sealed as the other who kept the commandments. These are all assumptions. We don't know for sure, right? And it's still a mystery as to why Dan is missing. For many years, I heard teachers proclaim that the Antichrist would be a Jewish political military leader from Israel. This theory puzzled me because I knew that the world's 1.4 billion Muslims would never follow or permit a Jew living in Israel to rule the world or control surrounding Middle Eastern nations, all of which are Islamic, except Israel. And so he said, why? Of course, when he asked many noted prophetic teachers, why is no one explaining that the role that Muslims will play in the end time prophecy? Teachers were teaching the significance of Israel and the Jews along with the Gentile ruled common market, but writers and researchers of eschatology consistently seem to ignore the Islamic religions and the Muslims, right? One explanation was that Islam would be defeated in the war of Gog and Magog. This cannot be true since there are presently 52 nations whose population is predominantly Islamic. Anyway, and so we go on and on here. I'm trying to see if I can skip on through in some of this. I think I need to skip over some of this. He's talking about the building of the temples and all of that sort of stuff. Is the Antichrist a radical Muslim? The Mideast is in the heart of Islam, and Israel is the thorn in the side of the Islamic leaders who desire to form Islamic caliphate. What role will Islam future apocalyptic events? It says in 1992, I met a person from Iran who shared with me the detailed apocalyptic beliefs of Shiite Muslims who make up the majority of Iran's population, beliefs that few Americans, including myself, had ever heard of. When comparing her information with the prophecies of the Bible, I became convinced that the Antichrist will claim the Islamic religion as his religion and will proclaim him to be received as Islam's final awaited Messiah known in Islam as the Mahdi. Um, but my problem with that, and I would counter with that, is well, why would the Jews accept him if he is going to be the proclaimed Mahdi? Because this whole thing is talking about deception. And of course, he talks about the Apostle John coined the word Antichrist, and it is found only in his epistles. It can mean against Christ or instead of Christ. Okay, now this is interesting, right? W.E. Vine's Greek dictionary comments on the word, saying that combining the two words, anti and Christ, can mean one who is assuming the guise of Christ opposes Christ. John uses the word antichrist in 4 passages, and he talks about little children, it is the last time, and as you have heard, the Antichrist shall come. even now there are many antichrists, whereby we know that it is the last time. Who is a liar but he that denies that Jesus is the Christ? He is Antichrist that denies the Father and the Son. And every spirit that confesses not Jesus Christ is come in the flesh and is not of God. And this is the spirit of Antichrist, whereof you have heard that it should come. And even now already it is in the world. For many deceivers are entered into the world who confess not that Jesus Christ is come in the flesh. This is a deceiver and an Antichrist. Because John writes that many Antichrists are already in the world, some teach that there is not a future person called Antichrist, but that the Antichrist is only a spirit that has rejected the divinity of Christ through history. I submit to you that the Antichrist is both a spirit and a person. The Antichrist spirit certainly exists in the time of the Apostolic Church, as some heretical teachers have already are already denying or were already denying the divinity of Christ and his position as the Son of God. At the end of days, one man will appear who will be a prince of darkness, a son of perdition, who is identified as the Antichrist. In 1 John 22, the Apostle John elaborates three key elements linked to Christ that the spirit of Antichrist and the Antichrist denies. The Antichrist will deny the deity of Jesus Christ, he will deny Jesus Christ as the Son of God, and he will deny the unique relationship between the Father and the Son. And we had, Pope Francis was kind of leaning that way a little bit. I'm not sure about the current pope and his stance on the deity of the Son of God. So we'll have to see what some of his writings are that come out. Just as the future land of conflict will be Israel, the future city of conflict will be Jerusalem. The present and future spiritual conflict will center around the question who is or who was Jesus Christ? Was he a mere man, a prophet among prophets, or the Son of God? To many religious Jews, Jesus Christ was a mortal man of ancient history who formed a new religion. To devout Muslims, Jesus Christ was one of the great prophets of Allah, but to the true Christian, Jesus Christ was and is the Son of the living God. And so it says further evidence that the Antichrist is a mortal man and not just some evil spirit or theological belief is revealed in other New Testament passages through the use of their personal pronouns. And he goes through and gives examples throughout Second Thessalonians and into Revelation. So, and then it talks about, he also goes on here to talk about, I'm running out of time this evening to get fully in depth in this. But let me run through a little of this. Uh, Talking about the names given to Antichrist, he was called throughout Dan and Thessalonians and Revelation. He is called the little horn, the king of fierce countenance, the prince that shall come, the desolator, the willful king, the man of sin, the son of perdition, the Antichrist, and the beast. And the early fathers believed the early church fathers that said the writing of the church fathers will fall into three categories: the apostolic fathers, the ante-Nicene fathers, and the post-Nicene fathers. And I guess those are the writers that expounded upon this a lot. And then I guess there were some people that believed Nero or Judas Iscariot could be Antichrist. And of course, he talks about all of that, and the history of all of that. As far as the time prior to the destruction of the temple in 70 AD, there was an understanding among believers of a final world global dictator that would seize world power through initiating a military style destruction upon the nations, including a final assault on the Jews living in Israel. In the annals of early church history are numerous statements expressing the opinions of early church fathers and bishops in the church concerning the rise of the Antichrist based on their interpretation of various scriptures. Concerning the epistle of 1 John, one fact is clear that in John, he was the first and the only biblical writer to coin the phrase Antichrist. Several years after his writing the three epistles, this amazing apostle personally experienced a magnificent vision of the day of the Lord, and it goes on into the revelation that he wrote. So I'm going to jump over here and talk about, and this is in part of the writings of Revelation in depth, the early church theories concerning the Antichrist. And let's just say that the 10 major persecutions that occurred: Nero, Domitian, Marcus Antonius, Severus, Maximus, Decius, Valerian, Aurelian, Diocletian. Uh, the 10 persecution theory cannot be correct, as Christ is to return to earth in the days of the 10 kings. So they had an idea that these 10 were making a combined antichrist, and that's of course not what uh, the facts concerning the antichrist are clear from biblical prophecy. So let's explore what these are. The beast will rise up from the Mediterranean and the Great Sea, and that's according to Dan 7:2. He will be great and strong toward the south, the east, and Israel. And then Dan 8:9. He will make war with me people. The Antichrist making war is mentioned 5 times in Revelation. He will appear to take a temporary defeat, but will come back stronger in Revelation 13. He will have strength in the ancient areas of Assyria Assyria and Babylon, or modern day Iraq. And that's from Isaiah 14. And he will make his way with his followers to Jerusalem to exterminate the Jewish people. 12. The Antichrist is not any man who has previously lived, but a future individual who will be controlled by Satan and rule an 18 kingdom for 42 months. And John describes the final beast as a combination of 3 previous beast kingdoms: the body of the leopard, the feet of a bear, and the mouth of a lion. The lion, bear, and leopard are symbols of the 3 prophetic empires: Babylon, Medo Persia, and Greece. John's symbolism in the nations each animal represents can be clearly understood today, and the leopard's body represents the ancient Grecian Empire, the bear's feet refer to the Medo Persian Empire, and the lion's head represents the Babylonian Empire. So, um, these the thing that I'm sensing about this antichrist figure person is that when he comes on the scene, it's he's going to deliver a deceptive. Uh, I think he's got to be a charismatic to draw people in, and that's the thing that we have to be careful of. I know there's a lot of people out there today that think they're being gracious by saying, "Oh, we just love everyone and we want to bring everyone in," and that's going to tempt people to go into this one world religion and one world um, uh, government. I think it's going to be attractive to those people who say, "Well, we all want to just live together in harmony," and um, it's going to be a tricky time to navigate. But this person that rises up, I think at first, I'm going to be interested to hear and see what Mark Biltz. He's got a new book coming out. What he's going to put out there as far as this Antichrist figure, and I would think that he would have to be appealing to a great deal of people across the board. I don't think that he will necessarily maybe ascribe even to one religion. It says that he will reject the religion of his fathers. I think he will come out with one of the more philosophic approaches to combining and coexisting all the religious faiths. And he's going to make it sound very attractive. And he may do it under, like I said, a false messianic persona. I believe that he's going to imitate or try to imitate Jesus Christ, Yeshua HaMashiach. I think he's going to try to imitate that to gain the trust of everyone, to pull them in and to lure them in. And I think he's going to look to the world quite attractive. And he's going to say things that are going to be quite appeasing. I don't think it's going to be hard. I think it'll be harder for those that are really in tune to the Holy Spirit to be deceived. Um, but we see what happened, right, with the people that just wanted the promise of a change and what voted in New York City. Um, I kept saying his most attractive feature was he is a socialist, making all of these promises. But underneath the smile that he is portraying, he has anti-Semitism. He is a Muslim, and don't be fooled. The Islamic religion has every intention of ruling the world, and now he's sitting on top of the monetary capital of the world, New York City. But he did it with a smile on his face, and everybody was charmed. So how? how easy is it going to be for someone that is exceptionally brilliant, but comes across in a messianic type um, of it will be interesting to see. Um, maybe we can, and I was hoping to have Richard here and that we could banter back and forth. He has a lot of knowledge about what Dr. Arnold Fruchtenbaum has written in things. And so hopefully soon Richard and Jim will be back and that we can talk a little bit more in depth about this antichrist false messianic figure and who and what he might do. um, but again, my main thing about that is to have everyone warned that I don't believe he's going to come out looking like Vladimir Putin. Not at first. Oh, he will eventually. We know the end of the book and we know the end of the story. But I think at first he's going to be quite alluring and quite attractive to the masses. I have We've come down to the end here. An archaeological story, yes. And this is dated from the Jerusalem Post, December 29th, almost at the very, very end of last year. Can you believe that 2025 was last year? We are now headlong into 2026. And I wish you could see this picture up close. This is the picture of a mikvah, a ritual immersion bath. And it's probably one of the neatest, best constructed I've ever seen. It's a really, really nice ritual mikveh there that's been found. And it says archaeologists have uncovered a rare rock hewn mikveh or ritual bath dating back to the final days of the Second Temple period directly underneath the Western Wall Plaza. The discovery, announced by the Israel Antiquities Authority and the Western Wall Heritage Foundation, provides a stark physical record of the Roman Empire's destruction of Jerusalem nearly 2,000 years ago. The ritual bath was found sealed underneath a significant layer of destruction dated back to 70 Common Era. Yeah, we know when the temple was destroyed, right? Within this layer, researchers discovered burned ash and numerous artifacts that offer a snapshot of life just moments before the city fell. Among the finds were various pottery and stone vessels, the latter of which was favored by the Jewish population of the time because stone was considered incapable of contracting ritual impurity. Measuring roughly 3 meters in length and nearly 2 meters in height, the rectangular installation features four hewn steps leading down to the plastered basin. Its location is of particular historical importance, situated in close proximity to what were once the primary entrances to the Temple Mount, the Great Bridge to the north, and Robinson's Arch to the south. Art Levy, the excavation director for the IAA, noted that Jerusalem functioned as a temple city where the laws of ritual purity strictly governed daily life. He explained that the prevalence of mikvaot and stone vessels in the area reflects the meticulous observance of these laws by both residents and the massive waves of pilgrims who frequented the sites. Um, of course, when I went to Israel, Roy Blizzard showed us the mikvah that he had helped unearth, and that's along the it's down from the southern steps, but it's along the southern side. And of course, many ritual immersion baths have been unearthed there, but this is in a different location that they found yet another. As such, many aspects of daily life were adapted to this reality, and this is reflected especially in the meticulous observance of the laws of ritual impurity and purity by the city's residents and leaders. Indeed, the saying, purity spread in Israel, was coined in this context, Levy said. Among the most prominent archaeological finds representing this phenomenon are ritual baths and stone vessels, many of which have been uncovered in excavations throughout the city and its surroundings. The reasons for using stone vessels is halakhic. They are rooted in the recognition that stone, unlike pottery and metal vessels, does not contract ritual impurity. As a result, stone vessels could be used over long periods and repeatedly. For the local community, the timing of the discovery is significant as it comes just ahead of Asara Betavet, the fast of the 10th of Tevet, which we passed that, marking the day when the Babylonian king Nebuchadnezzar laid siege to Jerusalem over 2,500 years ago. Heritage Minister Rabbi Amichai Eliyahu said the exposure of ritual bath beneath the Western Wall Plaza strengthens our understanding of how deeply intertwined religious life and daily life were in Jerusalem during the temple period. This moving discovery made just ahead of the fast of the 10th of Tebet underscores the importance of continuing archaeological excavations and research in Jerusalem and our obligation to preserve this historical memory for future generations. The heritage minister, Mordecai, I'm sorry, he was making that statement. Mordecai Suli Aliav, director of the Western Wall Heritage Foundation, described the find as a powerful symbol of resilience. He said that the presence of the ritual bath found with the ashes of destruction at its base served as a profound testimony to the history of the Jewish people and their ability to move from ruin toward renewal. The exposure of a second temple period ritual bath beneath the Western Wall with ashes from the destruction at its base testifies like 1,000 witnesses to the ability of the people of Israel to move from impurity to purity, from destruction to renewal. Yes. And of course, it seems that everything that they uncover archaeologically, it just goes to verify what was written in the word. They're finding many, many discoveries like that. Well, I hope that you aren't too bored by me just sitting here alone babbling on, right? I'm trying not to babble. I'm trying to bring us interesting things that are going on. If you enjoy this program and you want to keep it coming your way, you can always write us at 1301 Enterprise Way, Suite 63. Marion, Illinois 62959. That's the Truth and Life broadcast in care of Congregation.Ariel. 1301 Enterprise Way, Suite 63, Marion, Illinois 62959. And we will welcome anything that you could pass along to us. Yep, this doesn't come free to us. We have to pay for our internet connections, and we have pay for the privilege to use the platform to bring these programs to you. And we would appreciate any help that you would like to mail and send to us. We could use it at any point. And tomorrow evening is Shabbat. Yes, Jim's hoping he'll be back for Shabbat. We hope he can be, but if not, we will do our best to. I will do my best to strike down this and take it into the other room, and be sure that we can get the Shabbat service out to you. Brother Larry will be here to give a message, and we will be continuing on. And the weather has just been amazing right now. Normally, I mean, this is January. Last year at this time, we were having ice and snow. Right now, it's been mild, a little bit of rain, maybe some windy conditions out there, but it hasn't hampered us from getting to the service. So join us tomorrow evening, 7 p.m. Central Time, if you can. We're always doing our best to try to get here and get on the air as close as we can to 7 p.m. Central Time on Thursday evenings. And if you want to join us again, we'll see you the same time, the same place. So until that time, prayers for everyone and shalom.